So for our purposes today, we gave you this item. We're going to do a little bit of review and we'll get into making the chart. One of the things that we talked about last week was showing you a merge and center. We have information in columns B, C, A through H, all these columns. So when we get to merging and centering, we copy A or highlight A through H and hit the merge and center button, and then we have those merged and centered. If we wanted to increase the font a little bit, say we wanted to offset this heading, we can make it 20. You might have to make your row height a little bigger, just manually is often what we would do in a situation like this. That's really kind of simple. You can double click and it'll automatically do it, or you can just click and drag and make it look nice however you feel like it. Same can be said for our column headings. If we wanted to bold those, center those, if you felt like you making it a little bigger wouldn't cramp it as much, that's something you can do real easy. Things that we're not talking about yet, but you can also vertically center. If you had your row a little higher, you could vertically center. But for our purposes, we don't need to do that right now. But it is a little tight, so we'll make it a little bigger. When we do ranges, sometimes we would tell you highlight using range A5 through A10. And that just means A5 here through A10. We can bold those as well. Auto summing, again, ways that are simple. If we know we're going to need totals for all these, we could highlight this whole area, go up to, you see where the auto sum guy is, and we click on it, and it works. Similar to what you guys did last week, you can highlight, use the auto sum function here, and then you can fill it down with that cursor and making that little plus sign, fill it down, and now you got your auto sum. If you wanted to get these all to have 2 decimal points, you just hit the comma button. You can do decimal increase, decrease here, but often I will just hit the comma button, and that gives you commas and 2 decimal places. If you wanted to put dollar signs, often they will put dollar signs on possibly, say, the first row and the last row to kind of show you that it's worth money. That's something. If you run into a situation where you have this pound sign or hashtag sign or the number sign come up, don't worry about it. That just means, and again, you can double click and it'll automatically format it. Just means your cell didn't have enough room. And often we'll give our total numbers a little more area. Also, what you guys worked in with the borders function, go up to borders, go down to more borders. And again, how you guys, there's 1,000 different ways to do things. You can go up to format cells and go to border as well. But whatever shows up in this section will show up. So if you wanted to make an orange line there, nothing shows up, so it won't be there until you click on it. If you wanted the second one in the same color, you just keep it, or you wanted to change, you can go. But then you'd put it down here so that the single line, double line shows up here. That's what will show up on your spreadsheet. Okay, so we're kind of set up, and that's a little bit of a quick review. Now we want to make some charts. And so there's a variety of different ways to do it. Somebody might go, okay, I'm just going to highlight this whole area. We don't highlight the heading, but if you highlighted this whole area, including the totals, I'll show you what your chart would look like. You go to your Insert tab here, and you can go to Charts. Now, there's a variety of different things here that you can look at. There's pie, there's the scatter charts, whatever, but this is the easy one to work with, is a 2D, 3D cluster column. If you leave your cursor there, you can see what it is. This is 2D cluster, 3D cluster. So if you make a 3D cluster chart, you can see it doesn't really tell you a lot, does it? And charts are supposed to be visually showing someone or describing or better explaining what they're saying in words or in their presentation. This doesn't do a whole lot. So let's say the person highlights down here excludes this total line because they're like, I don't want all these totals in there. It goes to the 3D column. Well, here's the next chart they made, that would be made. A little better, but really, you know, not the best. And what you can see is what is highlighted in the chart will always show up. So if you highlight everything, you will get everything. And so instead of those, maybe we would not include the totals. We just want the months and the cities. And we go ahead up to the Insert tab, over to our chart column area where we can choose the 3D column cluster. And there's a chart that visually can kind of compare a little bit better. So we will get rid of these, but you can see the difference, right? Whatever you highlight will show up. And since this chart doesn't have the totals, you get a little different area of a range. This is range A4 through G9. A4 through G9 range. And that'll be important later when you guys start making your own charts. We'll give you ranges to help you out with. As far as the chart goes then, you can make it as big as you want. You can put it on its own. You can copy it if you want it, or you can cut it and you can put it on its own tab and make it big or whatever. Or you can just leave it alone, put it back on its where we had it, and that way you can manipulate a little bit with your spreadsheet information. Whatever, however your teacher wants you to, or however your presentation needs to be. One of the things we want to mess around with is we're just going to show you a few things. If you wanted to edit the title, you can do so in here, right? Just by editing the title, clicking in there. But you can also, if you choose to, when we click on the chart itself, hopefully, okay, and I had to double click on it. That might be what you have to do as well. Over here, because then you start getting some information. You have chart title. You can say above the chart, and then it'll pop up, and then you can call it whatever you want to call it. And they'll allow you to type in there, and you can type or whatever you want. So we'll just put Dillon Clothing Sales there. If you wanted to move the legend around, you can go here to legend. You can put it on the right side. Go here to legend and put it on the left side. Whatever you want to do is fine. If you put it over here where you can see it a little bit, other things you can do with this legend is you can make it bigger. You can, over here, since I clicked on it, the legend has some opportunities for you to do a few things text-wise or legend-wise. For example, if you use legend options and this fill area, you can choose a solid fill. So let's say you wanted just a plain background but kind of offset it, and that's what we did there with that gray. So that's what it would look like. But now if you wanted to put a border around it, you could go make sure you're in the border section and you can get a solid line going. So let's say you wanted red. Well, that's pretty good. Now if you wanted it a little thicker, you can increase it there, offsets it a little bit, shows some whatever, but you can mess with that. This is kind of a simple way of setting things up in a chart type of position. Now if you didn't like these default colors, let's say we wanted to change the blue, which is Orlando. So if we were say change Orlando to black, you would choose the bar that was Orlando, which is the first one, and you would make sure you're in the fill here, and you would go and change it to black. And if they said the next one, Miami, let's change Miami to red. Make sure you're in the fill and make sure you change Miami to red. And you just kind of go through it. Let's say we want to change Fort Lauderdale to green. Make sure it goes to the fill. Sometimes, and everybody's might be a smidge different, but how it gets set back Tallahassee, if we wanted to change this orange, I don't know, just say we want to change it to something real quick. Let's just go with yellow. And then Fort Pierce, if we click on it, you can change Fort Pierce to purple. So there. So we're able to put a title on a page, on a chart. Excuse me. You can edit and improvise this a little bit. You know, just like anything else, improving the size of the font, changing the colors and background and outline of the legend, moving the legend around, changing the colors here. This is just a basic chart that you would set up, and if you can see, if somebody was to make this chart, it is the range A4 through G9, not including the totals. Whatever we highlight in this chart will show up. Hopefully when you get finished, yours will look something similar, very similar to this. You can set it up this way. You know, rewind the video, kind of follow it as best you can, and then hopefully you can turn that in, and it's just a simple way of making a 3D custom column chart.